2024 in film, here are my top 10 movies from this year. The disclaimers are, of course, that this is my subjective opinion. My favorites may not reflect your favorites, and there's also a chance I haven't seen your favorites. I always choose to put this video out before the end of the year, sort of serving as this historic document of what my top 10 was in that year. And so with that, there are always films I see later on that were released that year that probably would have made my top 10. There are 3 specific films that I have a feeling could crack that list I didn't get to see: The Brutalist, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. But unfortunately, I literally didn't even have the opportunity since they were playing nowhere near where I live. So if you are watching this and have the ability to send me a screener or hook me up with a film festival, let's make that a goal for 2025. As far as this year goes, I think it was a slightly above average year, especially comparing to this current decade. So on top of the COVID delays that are still somewhat affecting the industry, we also had the strike last year, which really impacted what was released this year. So compared to last year, where I had about 20 films that could have fit in my top 10, I only had about 12 or 13 this year that I felt I could squeeze in. So before we get to that list, I do want to give some honorable mentions to Monkey Man, The Substance, Conclave, A Real Pain, Juror Number 2, Bad Boys Ride or Die, Kinds of Kindness, Long Legs, Twister, Snack Shack, It's What's Inside, The First Omen, Babes, and Ghostlight. All quality films that I think are worth checking out. They just didn't quite crack my top 10. But here is what is on that list. Red Rooms is the latest addition to this list, as I literally just watched it the night before recording this. So while I'm not currently confident how high this should be placed on this list, this made a big enough impact on me that I know it needs to at least be included. This is a slow burn of a courtroom case featuring long takes and some of the most disturbing crimes I've ever heard described. That's the setup. But this film takes it even deeper, examining the danger of becoming too involved with true crime and the dark sides of the internet. When it finally clicked with me what this film was trying to do about midway through the runtime, it completely changed what I had viewed up until that point. And I just know that this is going to be the type of film that sticks with me for some time. I would say that Hitman feels unique compared to Richard Linklater's other films, but he has such a diverse catalog, it often feels difficult to find the common thread or voice that he has as a filmmaker. However, for this Glenn Powell-starred rom-com, the character examination of what makes people unique is as strong as ever, as it is in most of Linklater's filmography. The witty dialogue is both on the nose and also meta, as we see this fake hitman have to live out the exact subject that he teaches at a university. It's one of the funniest films of the year and allows Glenn Powell to showcase his acting chops by playing dozens of different characters. And it does really bum me out that Netflix bought the rights to this, because I'm sure I would have enjoyed it that much more seeing it in a packed theater. Admittedly, I am a big SNL fan, so there was never really a chance that this film wouldn't work for me. A real-time telling of the 90 minutes that led to the premiere of one of the most iconic variety comedy shows of all time. This thing is jam-packed full of cameos, Easter eggs, and references that probably go over everyone's head, except for people like me who have spent hours and hours rewatching old seasons of Saturday Night Live. This film doesn't spend a lot of time trying to have this deeper message, and I will admit that when it does attempt its version of character arcs, it doesn't always stick the landing. But when it comes to this fast-paced, intense, witty dialogue between characters with this non-stop camera movement where you're on the edge of your seat wondering if they will fail or not, it almost doesn't matter if you know the ending or not. I just had so much fun on this journey, pointing at the screen, trying to catch every reference that I could. I'll admit that DD isn't the most progressive film when it comes to pushing the subgenre of coming of age forward. In many ways, this story has been told dozens and dozens of times. The big difference for me is that this is the closest thing to my childhood that I've seen represented on screen. This is a coming of age film for anyone born from the year 91 to 98, as it features the early days of YouTube, messaging your friends online, recording skateboarding videos, and listening to Paramore, Motion City Soundtrack, and Hello Goodbye. This was my childhood, so that's why I have a strong bias for why this film moved me so deeply. There is simply no modern film that you can compare this to. A silent film not because of the lack of technology, but a conscious decision to replicate a comedic sensibility such as Looney Tunes and Charlie Chaplin films. This low-budget slapstick comedy feels like a miracle with how well the final product is, especially after learning about the grassroots fundraising and minimal production team. It is truly one of the most creative things I have ever seen, and it is truly a testament that you can create good art if you have enough creativity matched with passion and dedication. I would be very surprised if anyone found a funnier film this year. George Miller returns to the Mad Max franchise, and for the first time in 5 films, it does not feature Max as the main protagonist. Anya Taylor-Joy takes on the character of Furiosa, previously played by Charlize Theron. In many ways, if you love the Mad Max universe, especially Fury Road, you will enjoy this film. However, if you do have reservations to the plot structure or even lack of structure with some of them, this one may still stand out to you. This is Miller's most story-like film in the world, as it really does contain an origin, rise to power, and also satisfying conclusion to the character of Furiosa, filling in some of the details that were left as questions in Fury Road. And all that being said, this film still features some of the most creative and colorful action set pieces that I've seen all year. And man, oh man, does it bum me out that so many people let this bomb at the box office. The premise of Anora isn't particularly surprising, especially if you were familiar with Sean Baker's previous work, but this story of a New York escort potentially finding love while examining the lifestyle she comes from feels both cliche to his work, but also expands what he is capable of as a filmmaker, as this feels like the largest production he has yet worked on. Mikey Madison is an absolute star, walking this fine line of creating one of the funniest films of the year, but also one of the most devastating ones, sometimes flipping between the two with a single line delivery. Ever since its release, its Oscar potential has been strong, and I have to agree with that assessment because it deserves all the praise it is currently getting. The feeling of not belonging in your own skin may be a specific feeling to some, but what I Saw the TV Glow does is create this analogy that makes it easy to understand for anyone watching. The vibe and atmosphere of the film is what initially catches your attention when watching it. However, once the layers begin to unpeel, this blend of coming of age and horror suddenly hit much harder than the initial nostalgia presents. Jane Schoenbrun has instantly become a filmmaker that I will always be excited to see their work, as they create this mix of David Lynch mixed with old 90s cable shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The soundtrack topped my Spotify Wrapped this year, and ever since my initial watch, I have been replaying scenes in my head, specifically the ones that use the most creative colors and lighting. The best sports movies are the ones that can pull from the natural dynamics that come with that sport. In Challengers, we get to watch good tennis, when you have two opposing players who are battling one another to see who arrives on top. Yet, they also have this chemistry between each other that, when creating a balance back and forth, we experience great tennis. This is a film where Zendaya is being placed in the middle of this love triangle and takes place over the course of several years, creating this unique relationship that immerses you within the dynamics of all three characters, accompanied by one of my favorite scores of the year from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Luca Guadagnino is having some of the most fun I've ever seen him have, whipping the camera back and forth in such an animated fashion during his final scene. This film remains to be a spectacle, and I really hope it does bring back the genre of sports movies. It's not often that I am able to emotionally connect on this deep of a level with a commercial blockbuster, but what Denis Villeneuve has been able to do with this IP is nothing short of miraculous. This film manages to be both a sci-fi epic as well as a character study on what happens when your protagonist is actually the bad guy. We don't have enough big budget films that are willing to have such a pointed message like that, and it's of course thrilling to see it set in such an imaginative world. The cast is even more loaded than the first film, with actors like Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, and Christopher Walken joining Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, reprising their roles from the first film. Seeing this in IMAX was an awe-inspiring experience, with a beautiful score set to some truly unique and creative cinematography and set pieces. I'm always curious when I fall in love with a film so early on in the year if it will stand the test of time and still top my list by the end of the year. And as much as I did love the first Dune, as it also made my top 10 list back in 2021, this is a sequel that triumphs its predecessor in almost every single way. So there you have it, my top 10 films of 2024. I would love to hear your thoughts. So, have you seen these films? What do you think? Were there any films that I missed that would be on your list? Please comment below. Thank you for watching this video and any other videos if you have checked them out. Make sure you're subscribed, because even though I say this every single year, I truly mean it. 2025 is going to be a good year for this channel.